All right, well, good morning, folks. This is Celeste Carmichael, and I want to welcome you to our first version of Campus County Connection webinars here for 2017. I'm really excited. We have a great group of viewers already joining us, and we have a wonderful group of panelists here today to share with you simple interactions, how body language influences relationships with youth. So Charlie Izzo is here with us today, as well as Jim Hooper and Joy Gage. And they're going to tell you a little bit about some research and practice that's happening related to this topic. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Charlie. So Charlie, I'll ask you to unmute yourself, and you can go ahead and do a screen share.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm going to call up my PowerPoint, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
All right, well, Charlie's doing that. If you're just joining us, this is our first Zoom webinar. We've been using Zoom for meetings, but first time we're using it for a webinar. We'll ask if you can, if you have questions or comments related to the technology or connecting, put that in the chat. And if you have questions related to the topic, if you can put that in Q&A, that would be great, and we'll make sure that that we have some dialogue about those things. All right, thanks, Charlie.
Okay, everyone. Well, very glad to have you here, and thanks for inviting us, Celeste. So the title I have on the screen is a little different than the title you have. It's we're describing a method that we've been developing and piloting in several 4-H sites. And the purpose of this approach is to approach quality improvement from a different angle than you might typically see it. So people have been talking about quality improvement systems and continuous quality improvement for decades now. And usually what that entails is taking a look at whether people are achieving their outcomes and looking over time at whether things are getting better, things are getting worse, either with participants or whatever kind of outcome a given program has. And that's pretty closely connected to the big push over the past 20, 30 years for evidence-based practice. And there has been kind of a parallel area of research that originally, I think, came out of some industry and also psychology, which is a field that's my field, is clinical psychology. And so I was pretty familiar with this parallel approach that's saying, let's redefine what we mean by quality and redefine what are the primary goals of our organization or our program. So I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of I'll talk a little bit about some of the theoretical background behind that, just so you know why we're approaching it the way we do. And then we'll talk to you about a specific method that we've piloted and are in development. We're kind of an R&D kind of phase right now with. So. But the reason I just wanted to mention that is because I'm kind of coining a phrase, quality engagement, as an alternative that we should be thinking about when we talk about quality improvement, because in many ways the two go hand in hand. And I hope you'll see what we mean by the time we get through this presentation. So this work was funded by a Smith-Lever grant. Deborah Sellers and myself at the Brofenbrenner Center on Translational Research are co-leading the project. So most of what we do in youth development work, and I'm actually expanding this beyond youth development work. It's basically something common across all human services, is there's some kind of interaction that's going to happen between you, the helper, and the person who's receiving help, in this case, the adult and the youth. And we often approach this from the assumption that, well, we have, as the helper, some strategies that we think are going to be beneficial to the young person. So we engage in these helping practices, and we believe that over time, with a sufficient amount of contact with the stuff that we're working with them on, that there's going to be some improvement in outcomes, be it behavioral outcomes, developmental outcomes, educational outcomes, you name it. So the one thing that's come out very clearly, this really started coming out in about the 80s, but it's been super clear just in the past 10 or 15 years, is what's almost as important as what we do is how we do it. And this is going to be no surprise to people who in this audience who are already in the field. But the way we interact and the way we approach our work with young people will either improve their engagement with us and with what we're doing, or worsen it, or lessen it. So I kind of am highlighting engagement as something for us to focus on as an end in itself, because you can probably think for yourself about examples of how a young person's engagement ends up being the critical factor that determines whether they're going to have a good experience in your program. So if we sometimes temporarily set aside our considerations of what is in our curriculum and what our program model is and what kinds of outcomes, whether or not people are learning and achieving their outcomes. We know we need to be thinking of those things, but sometimes it's worthwhile to set those aside and just take a closer look at approximately what's going on in that interaction between the adult and the child as part of the solution toward getting to better outcomes and better quality. So the focus of our project and the focus of this conversation is on what's reflected in this graphic. There are certain kinds of relational dynamics. There's a lot of terms for them, but we'll just call them, for the purpose of this conversation, relational dynamics that increase the participants' engagement. So one thing I would love to do, just for starters, is just have people take about a minute and just write into the chat window some kinds of engagement that you would like to see in the participants that work in your programs. What are some examples you would see that would let you know that young people are engaged? And if you don't work with young people, maybe you do things that provide service to adults or to elderly or whatever. I'm not sure who all is on, but just take a few minutes. I would actually love to see how this plays out in your own work. I'll give you an example from just some of the stuff that we even observed in self-confidence in the child. Oh, great, yeah. So I'll let a few of these accrue here, and then we'll rattle them off. What would you see that would let you know, yeah, they're with me, they're engaged, they're enthusiastic and are happy to be here and want to continue to pay attention and be receptive to what we have to offer?
Quite a few responses coming in now.
Okay, Jim, you want to read off some of those?
Yeah, sure. We've got self-confidence in the child, active participation demonstrates engagement, they ask questions, they're focused, youth volunteering expert information around technology.
A smile.
Eye contact, body language interactions. They demonstrate respect, they're participating, asking questions, making comments, wanting to do more, laughing, kids coming back for programs, asking questions and smiling, thoughtful questions.
Mm-hmm.
They went home and returned with questions and ideas.
Yeah, right.
Excitement would show on their face, demonstrating and sharing projects with the public, feedback on how they've improved their life, their learning through life. If it's a long-term program, they return session after session or participate in other events. They're not stuck on their phones. That's a good one.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah. As a parent of teenagers.
Yeah.
Feedback from parents or volunteers, excellent. So are we going to be able to save these?
I think we can. I think we can save the chat.
Yes, we can save the chat.
Beautiful. So, and things may continue to come in. So there's a couple of reasons that those kinds of dynamics are important. One is if you're trying to understand, what's going to be the best avenue for delivering the information or the activities or the skills that I'm trying to deliver to the kid. Obviously, if they're engaged, they're paying attention, they're coming session after session, they're thinking about it afterwards, then the doors are open and you have a greater likelihood of giving them the things that are in your head that you think the program is going to provide. Independently, what's becoming clearer and clearer is, regardless of what the content is, it's fascinating literature that's coming out now. Just engaging socially, just opening yourself up and spending part of your waking hours, a greater proportion of your waking hours in an engaged state, has its own benefits, particularly during childhood and adolescence. So this is another conversation, but we could go on and on about the neurological, endocrine, and physiological health benefits of this that basically spur human development in very powerful ways. So people who tend to be more engaged for a greater part of the day, socially engaged, among other things, are showing tremendously lower rates of all kinds of health problems and disease over the life course. So just to give you a sense of how powerful it is, and you may be familiar with a lot of this stuff already, but it was the impetus for doing this project, is looking at the power of engagement and figuring out how do we create favorable conditions for that. So I won't get into the details here. My colleague Lisa McCabe and I did a lit review on engagement and how people think about it and how they measure it. And just in a nutshell, people have defined it partly as just quantity of contact, how much are they showing up at sessions, duration, how many weeks or months or years do they participate, kind of observable examples of that they're involved, they're interacting, things that some folks said, like you can actually see them paying attention. You see that they're asking follow-up questions and things like that. And the psychological realm. From within them, are they motivated, enthusiastic, open, curious? Some people talk about attachment, even though we think of that as something that's most prominent during infancy, that continues throughout adolescence, and elements of attachment that are also pretty significant component of engagement. So when we talk about quality engagement, there's no clear definition because it's a very multidimensional and complex process, yet it's simple in some ways. We know it when we see it. We know it when we're feeling it. Open, receptive, attentive, eager and enthusiastic, motivated, and willing to put in effort. For those of you who are familiar with DC and Ryan's work, you may hear about this in terms of intrinsic motivation. So I just put this up as an example of another lit review we did, which is just looking at what are some of the most, at least from the research point of view and a lot of the practice literature, some of the most identified aspects of interpersonal interaction that end up relating to engagement. Incidentally, they also relate to positive health and psychological and social and emotional outcomes as well. But many of these are going to be familiar to you. Once you start getting into the literature, you'll find hundreds and hundreds of these kinds of variables, these kinds of features of social interaction. So what we did is try to think really carefully about if we were doing something simple to fit into an organization's quality improvement efforts and what we're encouraging them to think of as quality engagement efforts, what should we have them focus on? So I've started to identify a critical set of relational factors that are going to be useful. They're going to help the practitioners develop their own, what I'm thinking of is agility, their ability to be agile as they navigate through lots of different interactive situations with the young people that they work with, and that are actually going to really create the kinds of interactions that are going to promote growth and well-being in the young people they're working with. So to think of what are some of the most important ones, if we were going to prioritize, we're looking at what kinds of interactions trigger the kinds of feelings that are most universal in young people, or in people generally, just by virtue of being human. What are the kinds of interactions that we believe touch on some basic intrinsic motivations that we all share? These are things that are evolved. We don't only have them ourselves, we share them with other primates as well and other mammals as well. But there are some that are particularly salient for people, particularly during middle childhood and adolescence. We kind of pick those. So this is a little graphic this is one of the last academic things I think we're going to show, but we were very influenced by some research that's come out in just the past, I think, 8 years or so, by a guy named Stephen Porges, who's among other things, a neuroscientist, and now he does most of his work during professional development on this kind of stuff, to encourage people to be aware of the fact that every one of us has a function within us that's basically weighing the signals that are coming at us. It's weighing all the signals that come into our senses, but in particular, what are the signals coming in our social interactions that lead us to either engage and explore in the world, explore a task, explore a new challenging activity, or explore opening themselves up in a relationship, versus disengage and go into kind of a protection mode. Now, these aren't just nice ideas. It's in addition to that, they basically have mapped the neurological, so the brain systems and the endocrine systems and other physiological systems that work as a system together to allow us to engage. When we're engaged, we're not in protection mode. Those systems work in opposition to each other. So when we're reading the signals, a process that he calls neuroception, which I thought was kind of an interesting term. Instead of perception, neuroception. We have a whole neural structure, set a system to read what's coming at us. And without our awareness, we're not consciously processing these things. We're reading the nonverbal signals. Among other things, we are listening to the content of what each other's saying, but we're also listening to the tone. We're listening to the rhythmicity, and we're looking and integrating all that with their facial expressions and body language to get a sense of, do I want more of this, or do I want to get away from it? So I'm going to ask you to look at this little graphic. Shows some of the kinds of signals that might come at a child over the course of a day. So there's a million of these, right? Because interaction happens over time and it's complex. And you pretty much never know for sure how a given person's going to interpret some of the things that are coming at them. In the camps that we work with, there's some people that are from rural New York, some people from inner city Rochester and inner city New York City. There's some people who have autism, people with emotional problems. So being more increasingly aware and monitoring how people are receiving and interpreting the stuff that that's happening in our interactions, the more aware of that we become, the better job we can do of finding a good fit for those people and having them have a really good experience. So I'm going to leave you with two frameworks that we're using to help people think about this stuff. And all this is happening within the context of a video feedback program. So I've had other experiences where we've done video feedback in different contexts, but we've discovered a really great system that was developed out of University of Pittsburgh. Tom Akiva and Jun Lee developed a pretty simple program called Simple Interactions that just looks at 4 kinds of dynamics. They go around and get video footage of people doing a lot of them in after-school programs, but a pretty wide range of kinds of programs. And showing it back to people and helping them kind of reanalyze what just happened in those interactions on 4 dimensions. One is, to what extent do they see that there was a good connection between them and the kids? So by connection, we can talk about being attuned to their feelings and to their perspectives, paying attention, and adjusting based on what you're perceiving from them. Another is reciprocity, or having some kind of mutual exchange, some kind of back and forth interaction. Third one is what they call progression, or we're calling scaffolding, which is making a task easy enough so that they're going to get a success experience, but hard enough for them to be able to feel an accomplishment. So in adjusting what you do, you may plan your activities that way, but if you got 20 people coming in, it's hard to find their, quote a term, zone of proximal development. Where are they going to operate best? And fourth, participation or inclusion. Activities that signal to them that you're bringing them into the fold and that they're important. And these are 4 things that everyone does, everyone responds to. We all do it all the time. We're exquisitely designed for this as humans, better than any other species. So let's understand better how this works and why it's important. And let's look at it and see it in practice, see when it's working really well. The second framework is a similar kind of idea, but it hangs it's a different kind of a lens for reviewing our interactions based on compassion. So a guy named Paul Gilbert developed this notion of wise compassion. So if you look at the right-hand column, I'm moving through this quickly, I realize, but we want to show you some videos about how all this plays out. Before I said, when you're thinking about what to cue in on, think about what are the things that are going to have the most emotionally significant meaning in the moment for people. So throughout your moment-to-moment interactions, they're getting a sense of whether you're present with them, whether you're really trying to understand them better. And in the end, whether they feel that you accurately understood them. It's one thing to be listened to. It's quite another and to have someone reflect back to you or somehow signal to you that they really understood the unique thing that you were expressing to them. You're going to see some good examples of this. and whether they actually feel helped. So someone may understand you and make an effort to help, but they've obviously you want to show that they convey caring, but also that they are adapting. They're trying things out and they're paying attention to whether it's working for you. So in the end, they think of you as someone who actually is effective at being able to kind of fit what their needs are. So these things all work in an interplay: connection, reciprocity, notion of feeling understood. So we kind of approached Jim Hooper and Tim Davis to see if they were interested in bringing this into their program at Bristol Hills Camp, that see whether it would be useful for their counselors. And they were interested right away. So I'm going to let Jim talk a little bit about, let's see what's next. Yeah, I'm going to let Jim talk a little bit about how all this fits in with his work here.
Yeah. You might want to mute yours. Go ahead. Unmute mine.
Yeah.
All right. Can folks hear me now?
Yep, Jim, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Awesome. Again, my name is Jim Hooper, and I'm the camp educator with 4-H Camp Bristol Hills.
Okay, we got two competing microphones going on.
Mike, not your speakers. Yep, you are muted. Okay.
Now I got to shut my speakers off. I mean, I know
Okay.
I might. Sorry, folks.
That means I'm going to turn mine up. Okay. All right. We're still getting feedback, huh? I think we're good now. All right. Can people hear me now still?
Yep, that sounds good to me.
Okay, good. Again, my name is Jim Hooper. I'm the camp educator with 4-H Camp Bristol Hills. We are a program located in the Finger Lakes. We see about 1,000 campers every summer. And we also are one of the leading hires of young adults in their first employment experience. Many of our counselors are looking to begin careers in youth development, whether it be school teachers or counselors or therapists or anything along those lines. And we found that it's that this project, Simple Interactions, is a really great way for us to support our staff in learning skills that will be helpful not only while they're at camp, but also once they begin their careers beyond camp. And one of the things that we've always tried to do for our staff is to provide them opportunities for growth that will last them beyond their year or two or four at 4-H camp. Most of our staff, we don't have the opportunity to retain for more than a few years. And so we recognize that this is sort of a stepping ground for them, and that in order for camp to be valuable for them, as valuable as it can be, it needs to be a learning opportunity for our staff as well. And we also believe that we owe it to our campers to give them the best experience that we possibly can. And so to that end, this kind of a project with Simple Interactions, with working with Charlie and Joy, really supported everything that we're trying to do at camp. And I think that was it was a very positive fit for us. And I know that Charlie will end up sharing some of the feedback that we received from staff. But I can tell you that the staff, although some of them may have been a little hesitant at first to think that somebody's going to be following them around all day with a video camera, I think that once they understood the value of what was being offered, and that they understood that Charlie and Joy were here to support their efforts and to give them an added experience that we hadn't been able to offer before, and to give them skills, I think most of our staff, if not all of our staff, really eventually did buy in to the value of the program. And so, it was really a good fit all around for us. And we're looking forward, we're very excited to be able to continue the partnership for this summer. So really, all in all, a very good fit, both programmatically and philosophically with what we try to do for our staff and for our campers both. So, does that cover what we're looking for, Charlie?
It does. You just take a second. We're going to switch gears in a couple of minutes here, but I wanted to allow people to ask some questions. If anybody wants to take a minute and type any questions they have into the chat box.
You can unmute yourself and I'll remute.
So did they not hear you?
Well, they're hearing it through mine.
Yeah.
We could hear you okay. Yep, that's all right. And you could really, you could use the Q&A or you can use the chat, whichever you prefer.
I turned my volume off, so.
Oh, it's so I hear.
Yeah, because you're not going to hear Celeste.
So Charlie, while others are putting their questions in, question that I have as I'm looking at this is, as we're all working with other youth workers or being youth workers ourselves, is there, besides video monitoring where you can really see what you're doing and doing well, which I think that's probably where we're going with this, and I could be wrong, but is there a training component, like a pre-video monitoring that just kind of demonstrates, what are the facial expressions? How do you respond to things? What does it look like to be successful? Things that could be elements that may not come naturally to some, but could be trained. Is there something that goes along with this to do that?
Most of the, there's many different approaches to this kind of thing in video feedback, a lot of which has been done in the realm of parenting programs. And some of the best stuff, most well-developed stuff is with families maybe in the child welfare system where they videotape them interacting with kids, and then they spend a lot of time going back and analyzing some, pretty significant early childhood development things. In this arena, we're viewing this as more of people learn by seeing what's really happening and discussing. So we don't have, in this program, we don't have as much of a didactic component to it. And Lee and Julian and Tom Akiva and the people that have been spearheading is something similar to this in Pennsylvania have really found that using these kind of natural interactions that people already engaged in and having these team discussions on the work, these are people that have also done training in other settings, a little more direct, and they're finding that once people focus on some of these dimensions of human interaction, they kind of naturally evolve those capacities. They either have them already or they kind of improve them. Something about awareness and paying attention to something every day allows, and particularly when you're able to get feedback to see how things are changing over from week to week and month to month, has quite an impact on its own as well. Got a question. Do you think the skills learned at the youth development can you read that for me?
Yeah, I'm struggling a little bit with it. Do you think the skills learned through youth development are held closest in our community communication engagement skills? Can you really teach an old dog new tricks, or is there an optimal window for these skills?
That is the big question that everyone asks. I am sure that this is partly from a pretty significant review of literature, that people can learn these things or improve these capacities throughout the life course. It's going to be more effort for some than others, but if you've heard the term neuroplasticity thrown around lately, there's been a huge appreciation just in the past 5 or 6 years of how much is continually changing in the brain. And the things that allow us to do these things, it's not only neurological. There's these systems that once they start working together and figuring out how to work together, how your emotions and your perceptions and your actions and your ability to reflect socially with other people, once you start doing that more regularly, someone has to be actively opposing it to not get better at it. If one more question, I want to be able to get to some clips.
Yeah, KB is also asking, experiential learning, is experiential learning the best way, role play or live experience?
I would say they're all important, and I would say experiential learning is one of the more powerful ones, particularly in the context of when an organization is having kind of a congruent message, where supervisors, your peers, the administrators are all able to focus on the same thing. So when you experience the greater impact that you're having through paying attention to some of these interactional dynamics, it doesn't just get filed away as another interesting experience. Experiential learning with some real ongoing reflection is a pretty powerful mix. Is there another?
I'm just curious, one of the things that you mentioned is role play versus experience. Do you find that role play is greater or lesser extent valuable than a live experience with your live video that you're taking?
I don't have a clear idea. I consider them both experiential learning. The nice thing about role play is the stakes are lower, so there's certain kinds of things that can play out in a role play that can't when you have to continue running your program. The ability to stop right in the middle and reflect and talk with your peers who've all seen the same thing has got some value. Nevertheless, we know that when the chips are down, we actually get a stronger feeling of satisfaction when we're in the mix of our real programming and things work really well. So that's it's more difficult, and therefore I think you get a greater feeling of accomplishment, and you kind of learn it more deeply in a lot of ways. So this is one of the reasons in a lot of professional training programs, I mean, in my clinical programs, we did a lot of both. And then sometimes we kind of try out stuff in role plays that we surprisingly found worked in a therapy session. So similar kinds of things might happen here. So I want to move us forward, and thanks for your questions and for your interest in this so far. And I want to introduce Joy Gage, who's an undergraduate in human development and a summer intern for Cooperative Extension last year, who basically lived at the camp and was the face of our program there. So I'm going to be working the controls for Joy, but I'm just going to ask her to talk a little bit about her experience implementing this quality engagement program.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
You
Thanks,
can.
Joy.
Great. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the video going this morning, which is a little ironic, I think, in the context of talking about a video feedback project. But anyway, thanks, Jim and Charlie, for telling us about kind of the research underlying this project and some of the camp goals and how it fits in. I can talk a little bit about the logistics of the video feedback project. As Charlie said, I interned for Cornell Cooperative Extension this summer and got to live and breathe the 4-H Camp Bristol Hills experience, which was awesome. I essentially had a GoPro attached to my arm. So I would go around camp to different activities in the mornings, to different downtime, and try to capture the interactions between the counselors and the campers, trying to catch some good examples of quality engagement, and then have these reflective discussions in order to improve their professional development and see what we could learn by, you know, watching the footage together and talking about it. So these discussions happened in big groups. We would do pretty much once a week. I would show back some clips to the whole staff, which was about 40 people, and kind of just talk about as a group what sorts of things and relational dynamics we saw that seemed to get the kids really engaged. And then we also did it in small groups and in a one-on-one setting as well. So there were a lot of considerations that had to go into this, just because I'm sure, as you can imagine, like someone coming in who you don't know, following you around with a camera, it can be a little bit of a tough line to walk. So one of the main things was figuring out how to be at the right place at the right time. It was funny because we originally thought that we were being accommodating by having people come and meet us in a work cabin, which Jim and the other camp directors were super generous to give us a cabin where we could review some of our footage. But it turned out that the best way to catch people and get them involved was doing more impromptu discussions in a more communal area. Also, just developing trust and comfort with the staff members, because as I said, you know, as Jim said earlier, it's a tough spot to be in, coming in with a video camera, and especially if you do want people to be thinking for themselves and, you know, having authentic interactions. It's good to have that rapport going. I would say the other big thing that is imperative during video feedback is how you frame the feedback during these reflective discussions. So as you'll see in a minute here, we can run through some clips real quick. It's good to kind of use more neutral statements just to maintain your credibility and get them thinking for themselves and reflecting on themselves rather than just giving your opinions. So I don't know, Charlie, if you want to call up one of these first clips. I think the first clip we have is from one of the activities during the more structured activity time in the morning. We have an example of a counselor teaching a kid how to bait a hook during fishing.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start this. While you're watching this, we're not going to be able to read all of them back, but we're going to just jot down anything that you see that is significant, that reflects some degree of engagement or that reflects some kind of relational dynamic between the counselor and the camper that would be significant to their interest and their engagement and their ability to get the most out of the activity.
Have you been baiting it yourself, or you had a sea bass do it?
I'm doing it myself, and the sea bass did the last one.
Doing it yourself. Alright. I want you to show me how you do it yourself, so that I can possibly help you start yourself. Alright, hold on. First thing is you need to ball it up tighter, like this with your fingers. You gotta press as hard as you can. Then you get on yourself.
There's a turtle right here. You catch him.
Okay, I'll get
oh yeah, he's close.
Awesome.
He's like so close. Like this?
Yep, like that. But you're also gonna wanna pull it through, because the hook part is actually what the fish gonna catch on to. So after you have the hook part sticking out,
That's why.
yeah, you're gonna wanna mold it around the hook, like so. But in a way so that the point is still sticking out.
I think you can get some in a second here.
Bread bag is right here. I need to go over here. But if you can't necessarily reach it, you can more slack. Alright, does everybody have bait? Does anybody need bait?
you done for the day?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have a ton of time left anyway.
We got like 10-ish minutes.
I need a break.
Okay. We can get you some.
Well, you're a little bit twisted.
Where is the turtle?
Can we help you with that? I got your hook.
Of course.
I got it.
Okay, so I got your hook, but I do need you to hold the rod up so that I can do this.
Yeah.
No, the rod. The rod.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm trying, Captain.
There you are. Can you bait your own hook?
Yeah.
Alright, cool.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, there you go. Next time, I'm going to advise that you get one a little bit smaller, or else they're just going to keep like nibbling at it and they won't actually get on your hook, but you should be fine for now.
We're going to be done. I'm in the water right now.
Oh!
Joy, was it okay to pause it there?
Yeah, sure.
So do you want to,
So people are starting to comment in that they saw questions, answering, listening, show me, stopping, helping, providing feedback, awesome, relating to more than one person, not taking over, but interacting.
Oh, great.
Supported independence, verbal and physical guidance.
Yeah, that's great. I was just gonna say, go ahead and punch in if you have any thoughts. The biggest thing that I was thinking is it's a great example of scaffolding or staying within the zone of proximal development, like how Charlie mentioned earlier, because at the beginning, hopefully you could hear he says to the kid, you know, show me how you do it yourself, so that he can kind of gauge his level of skill and then provide the appropriate amount of support.
let's watch that one little section again, just as about 10 seconds where it's obvious.
Have you been baiting it yourself or you been having sea bass do it?
I've been doing it myself, and the sea bass is the last one.
Yourself. Alright.
So why is it significant that he did that? Well, I'll answer my question, just so we can keep...
Oh, are you asking me?
Oh, I was just throwing it out there. He's using silence creatively. You know that feeling of having somebody tell you something that you already know? If he wants to learn how to bait his own hook, he really appreciates this counselor checking with him to find out what he already knows. We all know this, and we do it automatically a lot of the times. The nice thing about having these clips is people can see what it looks like when it's being done well. And hopefully this image gets burned into their memory when they're in the same situation again. Joy, shall I move to another clip?
Yeah, go for it.
We've got a couple of comments that came in that they
Oh,
love
good.
the verbal reassurance. You know, there you go. Tone of counselor that was calm and warm, inviting at every level to provide the right support. Somebody else says, I really like that he asked the youth to show him and to demonstrate his skills.
Awesome. So are you doing the swimming one now, Charlie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to load that up for you right now.
All right, hold on. Yeah, this is, as Celeste said, we're trying to get a smooth transition here. Screen and Windows, and it's optimized. Share screen. Okay. Do you want to set this up at all, Joy?
Sure. So this is another structured activity time where the kids get to choose which ones they go to. And here we have a counselor teaching some kids from different parts of camp. I think we have an ARC camper and then just the main resident campers together having a swim lesson.
You say what ARC means?
Association for Retarded Children.
Yeah, close to retarded citizens, but it's our Teens with Autism program. It's run by the Ontario County ARC.
By the way, I saw a very good question in here, and I will respond to it at the end. A couple of really good ones. So here we go. We'll start this one, and then people just type in your comments as we go.
And we're gonna kick.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. That's
Starting to get better.
good. That's great. Yeah, it's feeling good. It's feeling refreshing. It's feeling great. Ready to work out.
I think everybody here is smiling.
Okay, so next
Everybody
up,
out here is
can we
smiling.
make sure we're not splashing our friends'
Do
faces?
underwater push-ups?
I was not planning on doing underwater push-ups, but you know, in our free time at the end, you can do underwater push-ups. If you want.
You can do that. Do it. Do one.
Not right now. Not right now. We're gonna do those weights.
You push up, and then you drag up like that.
Yep.
Then you go back down, and push. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds like a lot.
So I actually was just watching the comments pop up, and you guys were thinking exactly what I was thinking. Is just the enthusiasm in this clip is totally contagious, and the fact that the teacher is so excited, the kids are excited too.
So we described that system that the simpleinteractions.org folks have put together: connection, reciprocity, kind of reciprocal exchange, progression or scaffolding, and inclusion. We saw all four of those in there. And I'm just going to bounce it to Joy if you want to just comment on where you saw each of those.
Well, I think this is a great example of inclusion. You can see even the kid who's on the stairs who has a slightly different task, I guess. She's, encouraging him and saying, you can do it, just to kind of make sure he still feels like part of the group. In terms of scaffolding, it's really a similar thing. Not everyone's ready to be in the water, but she's letting those who are ready go ahead and be in the water. So giving the kids an appropriate level of challenge with the appropriate support. In terms of reciprocity, I saw a real back and forth. They're super pumped about doing underwater push-ups, and she's responding to that, really listening to their concern, and even adapting the lesson plan in response to that. And then I think the connection ties right back in with the contagious enthusiasm that we talked about earlier. They're clearly sharing this moment. And she's very attuned with what's going on. She's noticing where everyone is all at once, which just shows how in the moment she is and connected with them.
That's great. Yeah, I could riff on that a little bit too, but in the interest of time, I want to make sure we have time for, I think we're going to be able to show this one more pair of clips that we want to show you. Joe, I'm going to show the wonder stuff. You want to set it up?
Yeah, great. Okay, so this next one is during the kind of less structured time. They usually at camp in the afternoons have a rest time where they go and sit on the front green out by the camp store and have snacks and just kind of hang out for a while. So this is an example of some more unstructured time. And just, you'll see this really sweet exchange between one of the counselors and one of her campers.
While I'm doing this, we asked Tim and Jim, what are some settings that would really be interesting for you to have us focus on and for you guys to be able to see what goes on? And one of them was this unstructured time in the afternoon, right outside the camp store. So I believe I shared this.
Yep, it's coming up.
Yes, we're seeing it.
Okay.
My sister is? How old? 15.
15? Wow, that's old.
Almost adult.
Yeah, 3 more years. How old are you, Arlen?
8.
8? That's my brother's age.
No, my brother's not here. He's at a different camp.
So you're happy?
Well, I like being with him, but I also like being.
My sister.
Oh, we missed this part of it. Okay. There was a part where the girl said, we must have edited out. There's a part where the girl says, my sister doesn't want me around. And she puts her hand up and says, I walk up to her and she says, go away.
I think that's coming still in the clip.
15. Wow.
No, I think it was shortened a little more than we expected. Sorry, folks. So what's I'm sorry, Joy, because I'm going to open the next clip so we have time. It's a short one, but just to highlight what was going on.
Yeah. Well, so this girl's feeling a little sad or worried because she feels like her older sister doesn't want her around, and she's kind of confiding in the counselor about it, and the counselor is able to really connect with her, show that compassion that Charlie talked about earlier, and just kind of reassure her by providing her own personal anecdote that her sister really does love her.
So here's an example of us meeting with that counselor afterwards and showing her the clip in the lodge. Like Joy was saying, we found out that the lodge is one of the best places because you're going to see people just kind of walk up and check out what's going on sometimes.
Yeah. She's got stuff on her mind, though, right?
Yeah. It's pretty cool to watch.
What were you thinking when she was saying, like, this is like, hates me or doesn't like me?
I don't know. I was kind of nervous because I was like, well, like, I have good relationships with my siblings, so, like, that's why I was like, at the end of the day, like, we all still love each other, but, like, I don't know, it was, like, I wasn't exactly sure, like, how to, you know, help her out with that, because I was like, well, what if, like, her sister actually doesn't want her around, and I was like, oh, brothers and sisters, you know, we love each other, even if it doesn't seem like it sometimes. Because, you know, even if, like, she's like, go away, I'm at camp, and you gotta be over there, and I'm sure her sister still loves her, and she should know that. So
Yeah.
that's what I was going for.
Yeah.
So you were kind of trying to provide some consolation without saying anything that you didn't know was
Right.
true, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So do you get kids often, or very often, that have stuff on their mind like that?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own baggage, and even though kids have fun at camp, they bring that too. A lot of kids have opened up to me before just because, like, they've gotten close with me, and it can be tricky. I mean, like, this one kid last week was telling me about, like, their parents' divorce, and it was crazy. I mean, and I just, you know, try to, like, validate their feelings and help them out, because obviously if it's, like, coming through even when they're at, like, their happiest, that's obviously super important to them.
Yeah, right. When in compassion literature, they talk about, like, when someone is distressed, like, they're noticing whether someone is turning away from their distress or turning toward their distress, you know. And so it's just assumed that she's got something, a little bit of suffering inside, a little bit of, like, feeling rejected or whatever. But you kind of, like, stay with her, like, it's like, yeah.
So we've bumped right up until the end and really, sadly, don't have time to reflect on this. But I hope you get the idea of how this process helps people to be able to raise some of these little, seemingly insignificant momentary things that happen throughout the day to their awareness, so they recognize how significant they can be and what great opportunities they are, not just to help the kid in the moment, but to build that longer term relationship with them. They will remember having had a series of these positive, engaging experiences, one after the other after the other. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Celeste, and anyone who wants to contact me, the last slide, well, you probably have my contact information. Certainly contact any of the three of us. We can give you details, references, and follow up. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie, Jim, Joy, this was really awesome. And it's a perfect example of just what we try to demonstrate and showcase in Campus County Connections. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And I think, any follow-up questions after we close out of this webinar, after our participants close out, they will, you'll be shuttled to a little evaluation form asking for some feedback or other questions that you have, and we'll share those with Charlie and Jim and Joy for any follow-up. The recording of this webinar will be posted on our Campus County Connections webpage. And what you see up right now is just a list of the upcoming webinars. We've just added one. I try to do at least one a month. We just had a request and added one in the nutrition field, which is coming up on February 2nd, construction of children's snacks and meals in food insecure households, purpose, context, and chaos. So that one's going to be a live and webinar situation, and I think it'll be a good one. So you can register for any of those, and as you know, if you've registered for this one, when you register, you get one registration form, and you can check off as many as you like. That at least allows me to know who's interested and follow up with the contact and URL directly. But again, thank you so much, Charlie and Jim and Joy. This was really fun and interesting. I have, jotted down lots of questions because I think it's fascinating for any of us that work with youth and just interact with other people to think about how all of these parts and pieces of interaction and cognition and education, all of those things work together. So I'm going to sign off, and thank you again, Charlie and Jim and Joy. If you want to just hang on for a moment, and we can just have a little follow-up and then close out ourselves. So thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.